Hey everybody, welcome to episode 101 of the Masterclass. My name is Cam, and I'm joined yet again by Mr. David J. Hogue.
Yeah.
What's cracking?
Well, we're on this 3 digits of shows that we've done.
Yeah. It's kind of a big burden now.
It is a big burden. So now we've got
Don't quit on me.
till we go to 999 before we get to episode 1000.
Okay, if we get that far, I'm calling it now. Mark your calendars. If we get to episode 909, let's see, it took us 2.5 years to do 100.
Yeah.
So that's
25 years.
8, almost 9 years. Oh my gosh, it's 899 episodes. So if every 100 episodes is 2.5 years, 9 times, 25. So I'll be 55 by the time that happens.
I'm probably be dead.
Oh, no.
71.
Wow. Right now, the age gap doesn't feel that big, but 71 and 55 to me is that's a lot different.
Yeah.
That's a lot different.
Yep.
We could be, well, you could be the wise old man, and I could be the dad who's still trying to pretend he's 30. With whatever, the Snapchat replacement is then. Ooh, look at this whiz bang, kiddos. I know how to use it. Sorry, I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, that's the technology that we have today and where it was not that long ago. Just makes me go, what are we going to have?
I was listening to a podcast today, and this 40-year-old businessman was talking to these college interns as company, and he said he's convinced that in their lifetime, people will start to live to like they're 200. He goes, we're going to hit some crazy, technological, medical advancement. You're going to have contacts in your eyes that are permanent AR, and you're going to live to like you're 200. And he goes, and I'm going to miss out on it by 5 years and die when I'm 70. So screw all of you. It's like, I think that's a bit of a stretch, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
hadn't thought about it that way.
Who would want to live that long?
No.
And if global, population is already a problem and global warming already is a problem, P.S. it really is a thing. Tripling the life expectancy, probably not a good idea. Just saying.
Yeah. Plus, you'd have to work a lot longer.
Yeah.
too.
I think the retirement age would
be like 180.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. What would you want to do? Even so, you start working at 20 for 160 years.
You'd have like 4, 5, 10 careers.
Oh my gosh.
Plus, I'm pretty sure God kind of says in the Bible that he limited man's time on earth.
Yeah, because we used to live a long time. Like a long time.
Yep.
But have I told you my theory on time?
It's relative.
Well, yeah, but that's a simple answer, Dave. So, now I don't have, I'm not a relative physicist or, whatever the correct theoretical physicist. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have the scientific, what's from pedigree. There we go. To say this is fact. But do you remember when you were younger and your birthday and Christmas was always like, oh, it's so far away.
Yeah.
But then as you get older, you're like, how is it? Christmas was 2 weeks ago. How is it Christmas again? Or time, your daughter's, 5 months old now. Before you know, she'll be 18. And, she takes like 7 naps a day because a day for her is like 3% of her life, where a day for me is like 0.00, like rough math, not accurate.
Right.
But you get the point. So my theory is that because each day is a smaller and smaller percentage of your actual existence, your perception of time is that it speeds up as you get older.
Right. Yeah. I would agree with that.
So I don't know. Why did we get on that topic? My brain hurts now just thinking about it. We're talking about people, getting old in the Bible.
Yeah.
And like the universe is expanding. So that's part of the growth of time. And I'm sure there's got to be something there. I don't know. Like I said, my brain hurts now. I was at my sister's wedding this past weekend.
Ah.
Listener and Patreon supporter Katie.
Awesome.
She's now married. and she went to Caltech for college, which at the time of her enrollment was the #1 college on the planet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no big deal, right? So the kids she went to school with are all highly intelligent, like on the low end, and freaky intelligent on the high end. And there was a lot of them at the wedding, and I remember sitting down and talking with my now brother-in-law, his sister, and I'm assuming her boyfriend, maybe just friend, but they seemed chummy. And I know Carolyn, and she's super nice and also very intelligent, and went to Tufts University in Boston, and like she's no slouch either. She just got out of California and went to the East Coast for change of scenery. So I'm talking to her friend Alex, and I was like, "So Alex, we got to this point in the conversation. What do you do for work?" I'm a staff scientist at MIT.
Wow.
Okay, I'm gonna ask this question, but I know it's a bad idea. What is it that you study? I study diseases that aren't curable. Specifically ovarian cancer and how we're going to figure out how to cure it. Just like, well, it's been great talking to you, pal. Have an awesome night. I'm going to go in the corner and count my fingers.
Yeah.
I mean, and like, they're all just brilliant. And I was just like, and I told him, I was talking to someone else, and I forget what they do. I was like, okay, explain it to me. And remember, I'm a words and photos guy. The science gene skipped me. Like, talk to me like
something concrete.
I'm not an idiot. I happen to think I'm a very intelligent guy, but when it comes to that sort of stuff, my brain is just shuts off. Not interested. But I'm glad other people are.
Yes. Oh yeah.
So yeah, it was a great wedding, and I just wanted to say congrats to my sister and to Brad.
Congratulations.
And yeah. Oh, they're both getting their PhDs at Michigan, by the way.
Oh.
Katie's getting her PhD in immunology, and Brad's getting his in robotics.
Awesome.
Yeah. Good for them.
Yep.
Good for them. Well, anything you want to say? Oh, we have a lot to talk about in this episode, but it's been a while. Thought we should catch up a little bit.
I think that's good. Yeah.
Okay. We don't have to say anything. I'm just trying to be nice, Dave. I'm just trying to be nice. It's hard for me sometimes.
Yes. I'm a little tired tonight, so please forgive me.
All right. Well, last episode, we got all the way through the crucifixion and burial of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of like left it off at the climax of the entire story that we've been talking about for the last 2.5 years.
Yes.
Everything's been leading to this. The prophecies, his travels, like everything has been leading up to the point where the disciples all check out and Jesus gets crucified. And then he gets buried, and then we just didn't record for 2 weeks. Whoopsies. But we're back, and we're going to pick up right where we left off in verse... we're going to talk about the burial today. I'm sorry. Still at the climax, though.
Yeah.
Man, all of that, and I screwed up. Don't even know where we left off, Dave. So we're going to start in verse 57 of Matthew 27, and we're going to go all the way through verse 15 of Matthew 28, which means that next episode 102, will be our final episode in the book of Matthew. Not ever, just in the book of Matthew. I think we're going to keep rolling.
Oh, we'll definitely keep rolling.
So that's kind of the...
And we may come back to Matthew.
Well, there's a lot of good stuff here.
Yeah.
So that's the roadmap for today. We're going to finish chapter 27, get through a good chunk of 28, and then we will spend next episode on the Great Commission, which I think is a great way to both recap everything that we've studied and talked about for the last 2.5 years, and kind of a good way to leap off into whatever it is that's next. It's
Absolutely.
clever. It's clever how Matthew wrote this book, leaving that to the end.
Mm.
I mean, chronologically, so technically, it is Jesus's cleverness that put this at the end. But a good author knows how to end with a punch.
Yes.
So, with all that unnecessary explanation out of the way, David, would you please do us the honors?
All right, so we're at Matthew 27, verse 57. Jesus is buried. When it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who was also a disciple of Jesus. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate ordered it to be given to him. And Joseph took the body and wrapped it in clean linen shroud and laid it in his own new tomb, which he had cut in the rock. And he rolled a great stone to the entrance of the tomb and went away. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were there, sitting opposite the tomb. The next day, that is the day after the day, the next day, that is after the day of preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered before Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember how that impostor said, while he was still alive, 'After 3 days I will rise.' Therefore, order the tomb to be made secure until the third day, lest his disciples go and steal him away and tell the people he has risen from the dead, and the last fraud will be worse than the first." Pilate said to them, "You have a guard of soldiers. Go, make it as secure as you can." So they went and made the tomb secure by sealing the stone and setting a guard. Now after the Sabbath, toward the dawn of the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb. And behold, there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothing white as snow. And for fear of him, the guards trembled and became like dead men. But the angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you seek Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, for he is risen, as he said. Come, see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples that he has risen from the dead, and behold, he is going before you in Galilee. There you will see him. See, I have told you." So they departed quickly from the tomb with fear and great joy, and ran to tell his disciples. And behold, Jesus met them and said, "Greetings." And they came up and took hold of his feet and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee, and there they will see me." While they were going, behold, some of the guard went into the city and told the chief priests all that had taken place. And when they had assembled with the elders and taken counsels, they gave sufficient sum of money to the soldiers and said, "Tell people, his disciples came by night and stole him away while we were asleep. And if this comes to the governor's ears, we will satisfy him and keep you out of trouble." So they took the money and did as they were directed. And this story has spread among the Jews to this day.
All right. Lots of good stuff there.
Mm-hmm.
So body gets buried.
Yep.
They rolled a great stone.
Yep.
And of course, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were there sitting opposite the tomb. So the two ladies that get mentioned in verse 55 and 56 being there watching Jesus get crucified are again mentioned here watching him get put in the tomb.
Mm-hmm.
And as Dan pointed out in last episode, I think it's important to note the consistent presence of these two throughout this whole ordeal.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone else, for the most part, seems to have vanished.
Yes.
And these two women are there for for the crucifixion, for the burial, and for the resurrection by name, so that, again, people in this time could go. The whole reason they're named is so you can go find them.
Mm-hmm.
And Luke even does this in his gospel, or he'll say his name was this, son of this. You can go talk to him. Like, I'm pretty sure he almost says it that way.
Yeah.
Like, go ask him for verification. So I think it's really cool that they're in this whole series, end of 27, beginning of 28, shown to be there for each stage of the process.
Yes.
And again, to Dan's point, the fact that they are women means that their testimony is useless in the court system of this time.
Yeah.
Because women can't be trusted. They're just dirty liars, Dave, apparently. I mean, obviously, times change and cultural norms change. But this one just seems silly to me. But I also think it's interesting that they are the ones that are present, and Matthew is not shy of saying, "Yep, it was women."
Yeah, because you're not going to put that in there if you're trying to if you're going to fake it, make something up. Those aren't details that you do in this particular.
Unless you're very clever.
I don't think so.
It's what's the word? Reverse psychology.
Yeah.
You're not buying it?
No.
All right.
Yeah, because I mean, truly, it's just not. Again, there's no benefit from making them the stars of the story and it being central to them, unless it just happened. Plus, it's kind of I believe it to be consistent with what I think you see throughout history in just terms of, the character of women and the character of men when it really comes down to some of these difficult issues. And I think a lot of times men are the first to get the heck out of Dodge when, things get rough. And
yeah, when they can't fix it and they actually have to be present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And women are so much more about the relationship. And that is why they are there. They're there because they love Jesus. They're there because of who he is in their life. And they're not there for the status. They're not there for the, because things didn't turn out the way they expected to, they don't bail. They're there for Jesus.
Yeah. So, moving on. The next day, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered before Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember how the impostor said, while he was still alive, after 3 days, I will rise." How come they remember and the disciples don't?
That's a good question.
It just seems really weird.
Well, because I think everybody probably does remember, but I think there's a couple things here. Nobody expects him to really rise, because even the Pharisees and the priests are saying he's going to fake it, or his disciples are going to fake it. Mm-hmm. So that's even their motivation is the whole. It's not a legitimate he's going to rise. It's, hey, they're gonna make this look like it's legit.
Yeah, I get your point, but to me, it's like, did they keep a tally of all the ludicrous, in air quotes, things that he said? Because he also said, he referred to it as the temple, not necessarily himself. And so I just find it interesting that the people that set about to murder him remember in detail one of his many claims. And I get the self-preservation aspect here, which makes sense, because everything they've done to this point has been in self-preservation to keep their position and their power. So that aspect of it makes sense. I just think the fact that in the midst of, I'm assuming, their celebration, they're like, wait a minute, remember that one time he said this one thing? We should go protect the tomb. Like, I think they should have protected it regardless. But again, this detail. But the other question, too, that I have is, how does Matthew know this conversation happened? He's not a chief priest or an elder, and he's not Pontius Pilate. So unless, working theory, Pilate sees what happens, converts, tells them the story. I don't know. Divine revelation. It just seems like, how does Matthew have this information? It seems like a privy conversation that he was, or a private conversation he was not privy to. Let me use my words correctly. Just a thought. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
It doesn't make me believe less. It's just an interesting. How did he get this information? Because, I think for me.
Well, here's my question. In order for the Pharisees and the priest to go to Pilate, it's going to have to be a public. I mean, they're not going to get a close quarters meeting with Pilate.
Why not?
Because I don't believe that's how that worked with the Roman governor and Pilate. Pilate wants to be done with this. He's not going to be having a closed door meeting. So
you think this was him holding court?
Yeah. Yeah, he's not going to have why would Pilate have a private meeting with these people that I mean, I'm sure when they showed it, I mean, this is purely speculation on my part, but Pilate's saying a few verses back, I washed my hands of this. Okay, you got what you wanted. The guy's crucified. He's dead. He's buried. Now you're coming to me with this too? I mean, I would just think Pilate would be exasperated, and it would have been very much a public court type. This is what we want. And I just kind of see Pilate just being again sort of this like, all right, you got to guard the soldiers. Go make it as secure as you can. They went, they made it secure and sealed it and set a guard.
All right. Still thinking about that, but we can move on. I don't know. I guess I just find obviously the resurrection is like pretty much the most important thing to ever happen.
It is the most important thing, yes.
Well, you could argue so was creation of the entire universe because it wasn't broken yet. So, like, I think this is the most important thing post-broken universe. And then the creation would be the most important. Well, not even that, because, oh, see, now we're getting into that whole time thing again.
Yeah. I think this is the most important.
But I guess what I'm trying to say, and apparently failing at, thanks, Dave, is I pay very close attention to these resurrection stories because if there was ever something that was going to cause me doubt about God, Jesus, and the Bible, it's this, because it's so ludicrous, right? And I guess to me, like, you hear lots of defenses for the resurrection and proofs for the resurrection and that sort of stuff. But I think for me, what it comes down to is the fact that the church happened. To me, that's the biggest defense of the resurrection as being an actual thing that actually happened that caused people to create this thing that still exists today, albeit in much different forms now than then, but with, generally speaking, the same purpose. And that, to me, is kind of what I keep coming back to, is that if it was knowingly false, it never would have taken off as quickly and as early as it did. You know, a lot of the atheistic scholars that make it their job to study the Bible, which I always found interesting, try to push the dates of the Gospels back into like the 2nd and 3rd centuries, when it's pretty obvious that they were like written anywhere from like 20 to 40 or 50 years after.
Mm-hmm.
And by that, I mean distributed. So it's just kind of interesting, and if you're into that sort of stuff, you can look up the Jesus Seminar and just kind of wonder what in the world those folks are up to. They're deciding what Jesus actually said and what he didn't actually say, and they vote on it with pebbles or like little colored. So you can get the Jesus Seminar version of the Gospels, and everything is highlighted to what Jesus definitely didn't say, probably didn't say, might have said, probably said, or definitely said. And guess which gospel has the least redactions? The all-reliable Gospel of Thomas.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which scholarship shows was written, I think, 200 or 300 years after. But that's the one that's most accurate. And it's this bunch of these old, crusty dudes deciding now, or in the 90s, what Jesus said and didn't say, based on whatever, divine knowledge they have. It's just, I'm putting them in the show notes. Read their stuff at your own peril. It just makes me angry.
Yeah. So I was thinking about your comment about Christianity continuing for thousands of years. In Acts 5, there's kind of a little um, oh
The mass appearance, is that what you're talking
no
about?
no no, it's the discussion of if it's of God claiming. So well, let me just read it. Starting with verse of 35, it says, "Men of Israel, take care what you care about to do with these men," referring to the disciples. "For before these days, Theudas rose up, claiming to be somebody, and a number of men, about 400, joined him. He was killed, and all who followed him were dispersed and came to nothing. After him, Judas the Galilean rose up in days of the census and drew away some of the people after him. He too perished, and all who followed him were scattered. So, in the present case, I tell you, keep away from these men and let them alone, for it is if this plan or this undertaking is of man, it will fail. But if it is of God, you will not be able to overthrow them. You might even be found opposing God." So, very much of what just, this, there, and I think Satan kind of knew what the story of Jesus was going to be, or, you have these parallel kind of incidences of cults type things happening, and they don't exist today, and Christianity does. And with that said, I'm fully aware that Islam exists and Hinduism exists and Buddhism. I get that just because a religion exists doesn't mean it's the end all be all, but you know, the resurrection is something that is unique. The death, every other religion, you got to do something to get to God. You've got to earn it. You have to work for it. And Christianity is the only religion where God made it for us to come to Him. And He came and, did it for us. We're so dependent on His grace. And so many things that are just unique and significant about the resurrection.
Yeah, so let's get to that passage. But the response of Pilate is then, yeah, you have a guard of soldiers. Go make it secure as you can. So they went and they secured it by sealing the stone and setting a guard. So Pilate says, yeah, sure. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Again, to your point, probably like, can we just move on, please? And so we move on, and Mary are back. And behold, there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled the stone and sat on it, which I think is hysterical.
Yes.
Like, well, that was kind of hard. I'm just going to rest for a bit. Shine my apple and just take a bite. But also another thing that is fascinating to me is anytime an angel shows up, like, stuff gets weird. Because that's not a normal occurrence. At least not in my life is it normal occurrence. Shows up with a great earthquake, and then his appearance was like lightning, and his clothing white as snow. And for fear of him, the guards trembled and became like dead men. Grown men, soldiers, played dead. Again,
Roman soldiers.
As he's sitting on the stone, they're on the ground going, if we don't move, he can't see us. If we don't move, he can't see us. Like he's some T-Rex or something. And this whole scene to me is just a hoot. I mean, terrifying for sure, because oftentimes angels will say, first thing out of their mouth, fear not. Like, it's cool. I come in peace.
Yeah.
And, I grew up with two younger sisters, and so they had Precious Moments Bibles, and angels are these little cute porcelain dolls, with totally anatomically incorrect wings that can never actually make them fly.
Yeah.
And I get the feeling that angels are probably terrifying. Not in like a horror movie monster terrifying way, but in like a holy crap, like just look at the ground again. If we don't move, he can't see us. Like that. Yeah. Their response to me it's ridiculous, but it makes sense. It's just like just terrifying in the powerful way, not
Right.
in the like, oh, I've got 17 arms and they all
Right.
have swords in them way.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I just truly an imposing figure.
I mean, it's pretty much like The Rock with wings. I'm assuming.
Yeah, a warrior type, and then
He got a Samoan sleeve tattoo. Sorry, I'm ruining the moment.
Here's the thing, though. Pardon me. I do just think that there is that. There is just. I'm actually thinking of the movie Michael with John Travolta.
Gosh,
and I know I bring up these cheesy, just stupid movies sometimes, but in the movie,
yeah, wasn't he like a smoking angel?
Yeah, but there's like this, and I'm probably being a heretic, but there's elements to his character that I find. God, I can't even think of the term that I'm thinking of. But there's one scene where he decides to go into battle, or it's time for battle, and he squares off with a bull, and then basically rams the bull and knocks the bull. I think both him and the bull end up on the ground, sort of thing. And I think there's just that element of like manliness.
So why'd they pick John Travolta to play him?
I don't know. I
mean, why not Arnold?
Yeah. So
at least they didn't pick Tom Cruise. They could have done worse.
They could have done worse. Yeah, no, and that not even. Yeah, him is.
Speaking of Scientologists.
But yeah, there's something untamed about angels. Something wild about angels that I think in the same way that we would be fearful of a lion, or if we were in the ring with a raging bull. It's that kind of terror of just like, kind of that unbridled, just masculinity and toughness, and just something that we don't have. And then I definitely think there's warrior angels, and then there's like the cherubim, and then there's definitely different roles that different angels play.
So he addresses the women, as I'm sure, they're trying to figure out what in the world is happening. And he says, again, do not be afraid. I come in peace, right? For I know that you seek Jesus who was crucified, as opposed to the other Jesus that they were friends with. Like, he is not here, for he is risen, as he said. Come see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples that he is risen from the dead. And behold, he is going before you to Galilee. There you will see him. See, I have told you. Like, I know people spoke differently back then, but I'm just trying to picture this, this angel guy. See, I have told you. And then back up into heaven. Maybe he just like, I don't know. Never mind. Now I'm getting into the weird stuff. So they departed quickly from the tomb. AKA, I'm sure they probably sprinted.
Yes.
Yeah. With fear and great joy, and ran to tell the disciples. And behold, Jesus met them and said, "Greetings." And they came up and took hold of his feet, and they worshipped him. And then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee, and they will see me." Okay, so questions. They seem to notice Jesus right away. Recognize him right away. But in Gospel of John,
right,
he appears to the disciples and they don't recognize him at first.
In fact, I believe it's not Mary and Mary, it's
the disciples, right? Isn't there I don't know if it's John or Luke, or
Luke is
where he's walking down the road with those two people, and they talk with him for seemingly a long time, and it's not until they get into the house that they realize it's him.
Mm-hmm.
But yet it seems like Mary and Mary recognize him right away. Which again, I think is indicative of the relationship they had.
Right.
And I just think it's interesting. I don't know what it means, if anything, but yeah, the fact that they recognized him and most of the disciples did not. right away. And he also says, do not be afraid. So I wonder again if this is, now that his physical body has died. Now, obviously, his physical body was missing, but is he now in his resurrection body? Like, the process of death, burial, and resurrection cause him to become what a human is supposed to be? Because in there talking some of Paul's stuff, or in Revelation. It's been a really long time since college, guys. I'm sorry. I used to know all this stuff. Talk about a resurrection body versus an earthly body.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just wonder if maybe that's why he leads with, don't be afraid. Check out these guns.
Yeah, I mean, but there's also, Thomas and him still having the wounds. So.
Yeah, but I feel like those wounds probably aren't still there. Maybe once, he ascended, he's like, all right, can we patch me up?
Yeah.
I feel like he's got the ability to do that. If he can heal lepers and blind people, I'm sure a few holes can easily, get filled in.
Yeah. Well, then I'm even thinking about, so, John 20, let's see, I'm trying to find the ESV here. I'll just do it on what I have pulled up. So, I don't remember exactly where it is. Excuse me. I apologize. All right. He basically says something to the effect of, don't touch me, or don't hang on to me, because I have not returned to the Father. Like right after Thomas does the whole, okay, so 20:27, Thomas, put your finger here, see my hands, and put your hand place side. Do not believe, but believe. Thomas answered him, my Lord and my God. You believe because you've seen me, but blessed are those who have not seen me. I swear he says, do not touch me, because
unclean.
I have not returned to the Father.
Was it like verse 17? Jesus said to her, do not cling to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father, but go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's John 20, verse 17.
And but then like I just am having this recollection of reading this in the last year, of just kind of like, don't hang on to me, but then a couple verses later he's telling Thomas, okay, put your fingers here and touch this. And so that Jesus, he's a mystery.
Indeed he is. All right, so now you got me coughing, Dave.
Sorry. I'll put out my cigarette.
Gross. All right, so he says, go tell my brothers to go to Galilee, and there they will see me. While they were going, behold, some of the guard went into the city and told the chief priests all that had taken place. So this scary guy came down and we just played dead. Like, how do you... Or is it one of those tall tales? He knew kung fu and he came and poisoned us and knocked us, like, I don't know. Again, I'm just spouting dumb stuff. Back to the Bible. And when they had assembled the elders and taken counsel, they gave sufficient sum of money to the soldiers and said, tell people his disciples came by night and stole him so they hush money.
Yep.
Which I'm assuming is a lot better than just being killed. Like, those are their two options. Pay them to shut up or just kill them all.
Mm-hmm.
And say the disciples did it. Go stage the murder scene at the graves. And if this comes to the governor's ears, we'll satisfy him and keep you out of trouble. So, like, I don't know why they were so nice to these soldiers who screwed up their one job. Maybe I just watched too many dark TV shows about the mafia and gangs and stuff. Like, the triads would have just totally killed him.
Well, in this is the part where it's like, okay, now how does Matthew know this?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is about hush money, but then like verse 15. So they took the money and did as they were directed, and this story has been spread among the Jews to this day. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. This story has been spread among. Yeah, that's a weird way to say it. It almost seems like this is the story and we're sticking to it, even though I know that's not what he means. But
Right.
and this is in this like in this story. What story? The story of these people getting hush money, or the story of the resurrection?
Exactly. I was wondering that exactly.
Because this is a frustratingly ambiguous term from time to time. Context is not always clear.
No, it is not.
Yeah, so this story has been spread up. It's been a while since I took Greek, and I don't know if in this passage the actual Greek is more descriptive. I couldn't tell you. I could read it in Greek, couldn't tell you what it means. It's been too long. Now, I mean, it would seem that this story refers to the story of the hush money because it's
right
after it. But it could also be a concluding statement for the entire section. Because the next section starts, now the 11 disciples went to Galilee, so we're changing context.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's debatable. And the term spread among the Jews to this day is loaded, perhaps, depending upon your predetermined assumptions on whether the resurrection was true or false.
Yeah.
So not terribly helpful there.
No.
Any other thoughts on the resurrection? We kind of blew through it faster than I thought we would.
Yeah, I think the thing is, as I said earlier, is just regardless of what you think of Jesus and Christianity and all of that, I would challenge anybody that is a skeptic and has a problem with the resurrection to kind of go, why would they even, why do it this way? Why would why would Jesus become man, live among us, to be crucified for our sins? And why is Christianity different than all other religions? And
well, what if people don't see Christianity as different than other religions? Like, I know quite a few people who grew up Catholic or, super conservative Southern Baptist or, fundamentalist sort of stuff. And when they see the Bible or when they, hear the word Christianity, all they think of is rules, regulations, restrictions, damnation, fire and brimstone, catechism, and they don't think about grace and mercy and love and repentance and reconciliation. They only get half of the picture. And other people only get the other half of the picture. All the happy stuff and none of the hard stuff, right? And so when we say Christianity is different than other world religions, I think most people are like, not really.
Mm-hmm.
I got to go to church. I got to do these things and don't do those things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it is fairly common for people to not understand what the Bible actually says and what Jesus actually stood for and did and why he actually died. Like, I've had conversations with people about, some stuff that mega churches have, been saying, or mainline churches that have just kind of forgotten the Bible exists, frankly. And they bring stuff up and I just get really mad. They're like, what? And this is when I worked at the restaurant. I don't even remember what the topic was, but he brought something up about, some prosperity preacher, and I went off on like a 5-minute, just like, that's not what this is about. And the Bible says here, boom, boom, boom. And this is what Jesus said about that. And at the end, he goes, whoa. I had no idea. Those are really good points. Now, it's not because I was, I was angry and I should have handled myself out better, but he wasn't a Christian. He doesn't know what the Bible says. He only hears and sees what's on the news, which is pastors or priests having, inappropriate sexual relationships with secretaries, wives, young boys, pastors laundering money, pastors not paying their taxes, like all of the bad stuff, or all of the Joel Osteen, just, self-help stuff. Mm-hmm. And they don't know what the Bible actually says.
Yes.
And they don't know what Jesus actually did. And it's just, so I don't know. Like, we can say that, but.
Well, and we're going to get into this next week with the Great Commission. But I believe that part of it is because Jesus was not about, go be a great preacher, go be a great speaker, go, get a stadium full of people, go get on TV, go get, that is not what Jesus told. And yet it has become kind of the perceived way that Christianity is proclaimed, when really it's about individual life. And it's about making disciples. It's about you and I doing exactly what you did with the guy in the restaurant. It's us as Christians speaking up for what we believe in and not allowing it to be, the pastors, quote unquote, the speakers, the people that have the, the audiences, because that really was not the intent of. And I think the other piece too is you kind of have the two extremes. There's Christianity that's about liberty, and there's Christianity that's about legalism. And both of those extremes are very dangerous. You can be over legalistic about, the list of do's and don'ts, and you can be overly reliant on the liberty to live the life that we want to live, and kind of have this peace that, well, Jesus will forgive us. And the reality is there's a combination of those two that I think it is properly communicated through discipleship. And maybe I'll look this up before we meet next week, but if every Christian just invested in 2 other Christians, and it took 2 years to do that, I think the
2 other people, they don't have to, I think the end goal is that they become Christians. But
yeah. I like the whole discipleship, like the complete, like, non-believer, you become a believer, to you are now growing and seeing Christ. And if every Christian would just find 2 other people in the world to invest in and do that for, the world would be like evangelized in like 10 years.
You're giving people too much credit, Dave.
But it's that simple.
Well, what's your term of evangelized? Being presented the gospel?
No, it's what we're going to talk about next week. It's discipleship. See, I think evangelism and discipleship they're not mutually exclusive terms. They are so interwoven with each other, but yet we've separated them out in a way that I don't think they were ever intended to be separated out.
So when you say the whole world would be evangelized, do you mean that everyone would become a Christian?
I am just saying.
I'm just trying to understand your terms.
No, I'm gonna.
Okay,
and we'll go over this next week. I'm just saying that we rely way too much on the pulpit for Christianity to be spread. And from a purely just mathematical standpoint, if you took one individual and they invested in 2, and then they invested in 2, and they invested in 2, and you gave it a 2-year period for each one of those.
It's a crazy Russian doll situation.
Exactly. And it's literally the world would have, everybody would have, that's assuming that everybody that you meet then goes, oh, I want to be a Christian. I'm going to do this.
Which is where I'm going to disagree with you. I think there are people that don't want.
No.
regardless of how much you love them, regardless of, they might even go, this Jesus guy, he's all right, but they don't believe. And I think there are some people that never will.
Right. And then, I think the other thing is you're right that, people don't have all the information. And, whether you're talking about C.S. Lewis or you're talking about Lee Strobel or, pick your Christian thinker that set out to disprove Christianity, and in the midst of it ended up becoming a believer.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that's more often the case than not, is that people that genuinely go out and try to disprove it find themselves faced with this, oh my, this is real. There's substance to this. It doesn't, it doesn't break down. And it's, again, I think that's more of a condition of your soul and where you're at. And do you really want to know the truth? Because if you really want to know the truth and you really do study Christianity and break it down and look at what it has to offer, I don't see people that end up walking away from it. I'm not saying it's never happened, but again, I think it's more what was their heart from the beginning in terms of what it was that they were really trying to do. So anyway.
Well, I think that sets us up nicely for our discussion next week about the Great Commission. Because we're only going to read it's 5 verses.
Yep.
But I've already got a bunch I want to talk about, because now this gets into the practicality of discipleship and what it's about and what it's for and what purpose the church should serve, and
yes,
all of that. And when we get talking about that stuff, I get really excited because I have a lot to say about that. So I think next episode should be fun. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.